Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the lab. With you today, you have Lou and David. We hope you guys enjoyed our previous episode about the New Year's resolutions and kind of being smart and not falling off the wagon too early on. Just being, I guess, reasonable with yourself. Today, what Dave and I are going to talk about, we're going to kind of jump into a little bit more of our physical therapy minds today. We are going to talk about periodization or programming in the rehabilitation setting. So, I'm pretty pumped for this one. I'm not going to lie, Dave. I think this gets missed quite a bit in the clinic in terms of when you see therapists who, don't get me wrong, love working with athletes, love working with, the fit individual. And you can just tell sometimes when they've had no experience, either not being in the gym themselves or maybe even just not sure maybe how to set up, or maybe just lost in how to set up a program. It doesn't just like click. I would say that for sure. But what topics in particular did you want to go through with this one today, Dave? I'm kind of curious. We can pick each other's brains.
Yeah. I think the thing is like, let's not just get into the weeds too much. Let's try to keep it relatively surface level
Mm-hmm.
and maybe kind of talk about the cost benefit ratio of like why we're not necessarily making it into higher percentages, why we're picking the rep schemes that we do, and possibly a little bit of like rationale behind why it is the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I guess I'll kind of just like lay out a quick template of this. At least in my mind, this is how it works. So upon like day one, you're questioning somebody, what's the one thing you want to get back to, right? And if they're a decently high level athlete, they're going to have a good response to this. Usually it's something like squat, bench, dead, clean, snatch, whatever, bar work. So it's very easy to define. Other people, it's going to be something as simple as getting up from the toilet or stepping down from a step. But either way, I'm making this my primary movement that I'm trying to address at the beginning of the session or your quote unquote main lift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times after that, I'm picking accessory work or other exercises that are going to help.
No,
I
that's
think I
smart.
think that kind of serves as like a nice framework for at least how I'm thinking of structuring my rehab program.
Yeah. And I would say like thinking about before that person's even like walked into the door, having like, this is just kind of what I've gotten into over the last 2 or 3 years is having like an A plan, a B plan, and then a C plan, where A plan, they're doing great, we can keep moving forward. We can push as much as, obviously within reason. B, maybe let's say they went out to go play with the kids for a little bit, tried to throw the football or try to, show off on the monkey bars, maybe a little bit more than what they should have, causes a little bit of a flare up. So I can modify based on that. Or let's say worst case scenario, tried something they really weren't supposed to, pushed maybe in the gym, did maybe a higher percentage snatch that they weren't supposed to do. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know who you are. And then sets things back quite a bit. So then we got to completely rehash the entire game plan for that day.
Yeah,
But no,
that's a
I like that
good point
framework.
too. Like maybe that person isn't ready to address it yet, so maybe you have to bulk your treatment into things that are tolerable for the quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote supporting muscle group type of part of the equation here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's good to have a plan, but I wouldn't say like don't be like 100% married to that plan because you never know what kind of a curveball is going to be sent your way. Um, Trying to think of another point here. So with also with programming in like the rehab setting, everyone thinks that bigger, heavier is better in the rehab setting sometimes. Where like, oh, like I'm not back to benching 315 yet. Like, why am I not able to do that? Like, only thing I've touched in here is 135 maybe at the most, or maybe 225. And it's like you like how you trained beforehand got you to where you are now. So maybe we do need to dial it back a little bit and then kind of do the building of the groundwork and kind of getting things moving better in that direction. I don't know if you've struggled with that, Dave, but sometimes you have people who they want to be, like you were, I think we were saying earlier, like the higher percentages. So, I mean, let's maybe discuss like why we use the percentages that we do, and then maybe even some of the rep schemes or modifications to lifts.
Sure. Uh, I guess let's just kind of go for like that bench press as
Hmm.
a just a good example. Um, Usually it's like session 2 or 3 that I'm trying to get you back into this, possibly sooner. Usually it's not one, because one, I'm
Hmm.
just trying to like really touch on your weak points, kind of point out some low hanging fruit, talk about a good idea,
Hmm.
and then more like session 2, 3, 4, and reintroducing the main lift. Now, of course, like if your max is 315, you're likely deconditioned, and that's a prior max, so it's not really going to be your new like your training max as I see you. Like that's a peak weight. So number one, that's why we're not using that.
Hmm.
Two, we're also trying to get as heavy loads as possible while staying symptom free.
Bingo.
So this to me opens up a door for tempo, pauses, heavy eccentrics, pieces like this. So a lot of times you're trying to slow down the rep to assess position rather
Hmm.
than trying to fly through it with like max velocity, which is often where people are symptomatic.
Bingo. That's, they say, quick rate of loading, uncontrolled, usually recipe for disaster. I love tempos. I won't lie. Tempos, eccentrics. Um, One of the things I've actually been going to with some of my older individuals right now is just a tempo goblet spot. And you wouldn't think, 25 pounds would be miserable, but I had an older gentleman who looked at me and he was like, "There's no way this is going to be hard," and he was like laughing at it the entire time. But by the end of the first set of 8, he had done the first set 3 seconds down, pause, 3 seconds on the way up, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you don't like me at all, do you?" And I was like, "You thought it was gonna be a joke. Here we are now. Let's have
Trying to
fun."
slow you down.
Yeah. But, mechanics, I think I always like to address in the rehab setting with like strength conditioning is addressing symptoms first. Kind of like you were saying, you want them moving and grooving by 2 or 3 days in, or like 2 or 3 sessions in, right? So addressing symptoms, modifying, whatever you can symptom wise in order to make everything movement wise more tolerable. Then you can begin that loading phases as you can tolerate. And you're not just going to jump percentages. You're going to be smart about that. You're going to move things on gradually, because if you're overloading the wrong area or maybe you're compensating in the wrong spot, then any weight you're moving at that point is just going to be for moot. Like it won't matter. Shouldn't say it won't matter. You'll learn how not to move, but
Sure.
I digress.
And I,
Um,
I feel like a good rule of thumb for some of this stuff is kind of 50% is kind of usually what I'm trying to get them to start with. And then it
mhm,
might be like in the category of like, I'm just trying to get you practice. So it's going to be at the beginning, at least, more frequent sets with less repetitions. So I might try to put you on like 8 sets of 3 to 4 with some type of like tempo or intent, and then have you
mhm,
do it every 45 seconds. So that way you're still keeping the skill. And
like
then
that.
that serves as a very nice, easy way to like judge progression too.
Mhm,
So if you want to give them low hanging fruit in the things that you're trying to get better, as well as like with your accessory pieces as well. And of course, we'll move to that. But even back to like the person has trouble going down steps, if you have
mhm,
variable amounts of like steps that you can use, it serves as a very easy way for them to see that they're getting better quickly.
mhm,
Like adding 2 inches to the step, or I don't know, weight to a split squat, weight to the bench press, whatever it might be. Try to make it to where they can see very measurable change quickly, and it'll draw some buy-in.
like that's a huge point to bring up, Dave. Measurable change. So like a test retest, right? So, and this kind of goes along with like patient expectation and kind of like what they see as being valuable to be measured. Because I mean, it's one thing for us as therapists to see like, oh, okay, like yeah, range of motion's improving, MMT scores, meh, better, whatever. Don't like MMTs. Um, but like as you see that as a therapist, but you also got to take into consideration like what does the patient want to accomplish through therapy? And so what you might have, you're like, I need to see this out of you before we can do this. But then once they have the ability to actually like what they would see as a meaningful test, that's what I'm going to live and die by with them because it, like you already said, it creates buy-in. But then I can see what the confidence level is like with them as well, besides just like the objective measures. You also get that basically the subjective report of, hey, this is actually improving. This is awesome. Like, let's keep going. I want to keep going here. Like, let's do this. I've had more than one occasion where the person comes in absolutely like, all right, physical therapy, like whoop de doo, like let's do this again. This didn't help before, or oh God, you're going to tell me I have to stop doing absolutely everything like under the sun, and then that's the only way I'm going to get better. And then it's like,
right there.
yeah,
I try to get you
exactly.
to do as much as possible during this time frame that's asymptomatic, so that way you don't get depressed during therapy. So let's go ahead and just nix that. As long as you're
Thank
not
you.
being stupid about it, I'll let you do anything and everything, as long as it's not reproducing your symptoms.
Exactly. Just got to be smart. Just got to be smart about it. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. I know. I think I guess kind of let's kind of maybe give some insight into like how you and I both started with like writing programs for patients. Like I've gotten this from like my some students at UD, like going through is like, I want to get into programming. I want to learn how to start writing programming for patients, maybe even for myself. Like where do I start? And so my answer to that is always start writing for yourself. And in all honesty, you have to experiment with yourself and you got to see maybe just looking at like some general like strength conditioning books. Like Mark Ripto has got some great books out there. Honestly, West Side Barbell, Book of Methods. You want to look into that? Not a bad idea either. Starting
So
strength.
get a coach.
Get with a strength conditioning coach. Get an
Yeah,
idea of how maybe they program for athletes who are healthy, and then you can see maybe where you could critique and modify your physical therapy programs. Uh,
yeah. I would in particular highly encourage weightlifting or powerlifting.
mhm,
CrossFit has too many holes in this equation, unfortunately,
mhm,
uh, to see a lot of like linear periodization. But powerlifting and like the accessories they use to bring down or I guess bring up like movement inefficiencies have
mhm.
been like the single best thing that I've used for rehab.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I've had a lot of great influences in my life in terms of like sports performance, sports medicine, but like just diving into some of the books and then talking through a lot of those points with a coach has probably honestly, there's probably been majority of the last few months of just me picking Brandon's brain, Alex's brain, AJ, um, Pablo, actually starting with Pablo now a little bit. Just because each one of them has a different specialty. So like how I go with different athletes is going to kind of be critiqued based off what they need. But then the specialty influence from each of them, like they all go a step beyond what a traditional coach would be like, I feel like. And so like just having that has been a godsend. So get with a coach, get some information, get some books, get read up a little bit so you can actually have a dialogue. But get a coach.
Practice what you preach to. If you're not in
Yes.
there actually doing the work, as well as like understanding the importance of recovery,
Hmm.
it's not going to sink in, unfortunately.
Hmm.
I guess like you kind of transition, like I guess from the primary to like the secondary, right? So that unfortunately this is going to be highly variable
Hmm.
based upon the movement inefficiency, right? So the main ones kind of keep the movement going, draw your buy-in, give them what they want, and the
Hmm.
stuff after should be the things that you're identifying in your PT examination, possibly upon like MMT. Um, but a lot of times you can uncover it in like your subjective if you question the movement enough. But
Hmm.
this should inform your accessory work, and this is like almost more where like the traditional PT stuff can fit in.
Hmm.
Uh, I still like to throw things that are weighted. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of times you're not seeing them long enough to do a true linear periodization model.
Hmm.
But from like day one anymore, I'm starting to get into like the habit of saying, okay, 4 sets, 8 to 12 repetitions. Once you reach 12, bump your weight. Just let me know you're doing it. Where this probably gets a little bit nuanced is probably like band tension.
Hmm.
Like if you're doing face pulls or pull aparts or something like that, like you're just gonna inherently just kind of evolve to a band and then get stopped,
Hmm.
but you're still maintaining like structural volume.
I like that a lot. I think I think one of the hardest things is like you've been saying, it's just we honestly don't get enough time with people where insurance companies want to cut us off at 6 to 8 weeks at the most, maybe. I'd say we're lucky sometimes with certain insurances. But one of the things I've actually kind of started doing more often, which has actually been kind of nice because it kind of maintains patient buy-in, but it also kind of allows me to kind of stay connected with them and keep an eye on like what they're doing. Like for example, I have um, Lord, how many different college athletes? Just in particular, like I have a college basketball athlete right now who is over in Columbus. And one of the things that I've been like kind of frequently doing is every once in a while I'm checking with him, just kind of make sure like his ACL rehab is progressing well, making sure that strength coach, athletic trainer, everything is kind of being, you know, done in a fashion, but then also that the program is going through is progressing him. And so then when he actually was back here on Christmas break, like we just did a quick little recheck, tested all of his numbers from when I had basically sent him off to school, and he passed with flying colors. I mean, he's a freak of nature with his single leg jumping. It's crazy. Um, and it's kind of cool to see because you can see like, okay, yeah, people are doing exactly what you need to be doing. Like this is wonderful. It just creates buy-in when you have the kids who are like the freshmen in college and they go off to school and they're not really exposed to new like trainers or coaches, and they can do that on their own. But then it also reaffirms like what you were doing with them to begin with, and just kind of shows, hey, look at how far you've come from day one with me to now. uh, I don't know, it's exciting. I love seeing it. It's makes my heart
That
happy.
and I think a process like that is one that like you can actually learn from,
Hmm.
right? So you're actually understanding that like more loads better. I need to progress things myself. It's not my PT or my coach or my trainer's job to consistently be the one to challenge me. If I feel
Hmm.
like I'm adequate at something and I'm learning how to do it properly, I should take the initiative. If I
Hmm.
feel good with it, I should be the one to try to like get stronger in this movement because it's beneficial to me.
Bingo.
So then you're actually taking what you learned and building on it rather than just being like, well, here comes my claim shells again. I'm sure this is going to be super specific to jumping up for a basketball.
Good luck at school.
Yep. See ya.
uh, no.
And just keep adding tension to that band, dude. That's all you have to do.
Live and die by the clamshell. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. No. No. Uh, no. I like those points. Those are good. I think, if there's ever, I mean, this, I guess this is kind of like a shout out for everybody, but if you're a physical therapy student and you would love to sit down and talk about programming, reach out to Dave or I. We will gladly sit down, and actually we could even have a live session one night, Dave. We could just sit, like, I could send it out to UD, and if you guys have questions on strength conditioning in the rehabilitation setting, like game on. Let's have an open roundtable. Let's talk about this. We can get coffee maybe sometime and we can just talk about it. But I think the only way to learn and actually get exposed to it is to be in the field. You need to be exposed to it. So if you're not working out, shame on you, get into the gym. Two, find a PT that is in the sports world, sports medicine, strength conditioning, wellness, whatever it is. Do it. Find someone, connect with them, make a communication open so that you guys can have a learning or maybe even a mentorship going on. Actually, that's one of the things that uh, I love doing with younger clinicians is setting up a mentorship program where if you want to sit there and talk about strength conditioning, game on. Like heck, Dave and I know that we could probably talk your ears off about all these things. I mean, we do it pretty much every single time we talk to one another right now, but it's a good time. It's a
Yeah.
good time.
I could like piggyback that a little bit too. Take a detailed subjective, right?
Hmm.
So they'll give you the answer. You just have to listen for it. And sometimes I'll or a lot of times, like I will actually ask people, "What do you want to do today? What do you feel you're getting the most benefit from?" The people that are involved give me very good feedback. The ones that
Hmm.
I can see that don't really care about what's going on is saying, "Shouldn't you know that?" And then my response is, "I don't have your body. Like, what do you suck at? What still hurts? I'm not you."
Yeah. Bingo. No,
Or at
that's
least
spot
that's
on.
like kind of like how I try to like get them to think you need to inform me what you want to do.
Yes.
I can tell you stuff all day, but if it doesn't meet what you want, doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, spot on. You got to show me that you care about the process enough to actually be like more attentive and aware of what's going on with your own body, cheese and pizza, body. It's been a long day.
Sure.
Holy cow.
Or whatever your expectation of your body is, right?
Hmm.
Like if that person that wants to go down the steps is like sitting over here with like a, I don't know, camber bar and I'm doing like a back squat, that doesn't seem super specific to their goals. So probably probably gonna lose them if I don't address the step.
True. True. Yeah. Being mindful of that. And actually, uh, kind of going back to you were saying that they should basically be able to tell you and through the subjective questioning, you should if you have someone like direct access, which is a wonderful thing in Ohio, you can get people off the street, obviously insurance varying. Um, but when you are going through your questioning, you should already be going through your clinical diagnosis and what you're going to do with them objective measure wise right in those first 10 to 15 minutes talking with them, like hands down. And if you're not, and you're taking, honestly, I would say if you're having trouble with that, sometimes a longer subjective isn't always a bad thing. I mean, you'll get better at it the more experience you get with it. But as you start getting better at being a detective and asking the right questions and kind of teasing out the information, your objective measures are going to fly because you know exactly what you're going to need to test and they lead you down the yellow brick road. I mean, I don't know if that's, how you've kind of taken it, Dave, but that's literally how I've always, I guess, imagined it is just that big starting point and narrowing it down to where I really need to work.
Yeah, definitely have like my key questions I like to ask.
Hmm.
Kind of gotten away from like testing just by nature of I just don't find any of them to be super specific to anything.
Hmm.
And you get a lot of false positives. So I go more by like pattern and like symptom provocation rather than quote unquote diagnosis. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's ultimately kind of what we do.
Hmm. Yeah. So I guess for our listeners out there, I have a challenge for you. Um, Try writing out a week of your own programming for a week, even if you're going to a CrossFit gym. Try to write up a week of like 2 to 3 accessory movements and see if you can stick with that for a week. Maybe let's make that longer. See if you can find 4 to 6 weeks of consistency. A week, you might not notice too much of a change. See if you can build a body of work over those 4 weeks of writing your own program for 4 weeks and see what the change is like through one of your lifts. Pick a lift, pick the accessories that you know you maybe need to address. Try going into that. See what happens. I'm curious. Take it one step at a time. If you got questions, reach out. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Dr. Dave?
Nah, I think that's the tip of the iceberg, but
Mhm.
it's a good one.
Yeah. And if there's anything in particular you guys want us to go more into specifics with for programming, let us know. Drop us a DM. Okay. We'll be more than happy to accommodate. All right. All right, guys. Then we'll see you in the next episode. All right.